Hi, and welcome to Dip In and Out with Lucy, the podcast that opens up the discussion around domestic abuse. I'm very fortunate on this Friday afternoon for me, but Friday morning for my good friend Ingrid Dutton. Ingrid is a podcast host herself. She's also a nurse. She is an advocate around domestic abuse, but she is also a survivor herself. And I'm going to hand over to Ingrid to say hi. So, hello.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Lucy. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you, because I know you're very busy. So I'm taking the time out today for us to have a bit of a chat. But what I love about this is I don't actually know if I've ever done one with another podcast host. So this is quite unique, actually. It's like from one
Yes,
podcast host to another.
I love it. I love it. And I've actually been very excited. I've had a few people who have dabbled a bit in
Yeah.
podcasting, but not, I think our podcasts are very similarly aligned.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is, one of the reasons we hit it off when we first spoke, didn't we? Because so much of what we talk about, it's such a difficult topic for a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
think if we talk, we've just said literally before we started recording, if we do it in a way where people feel part of the conversation rather than feeling alienated or that it's something they don't understand. Well, actually, we're both sitting here with our cuppers, and that's
Yes,
how it should feel, is that it's easy to sit in this environment and listen because it's not meant to be intimidating because it is a difficult subject, isn't it?
it is. I agree. And so I invite everyone to grab their cup, pull up a chair, and join us in this conversation.
You need to do audible. Your voice is just listen to them, pull up a chair and get your cup out. I love it. Oh my God, yeah. I'd be buying those audible books. I'm telling you right now if you were doing them.
Oh,
so
I
um,
love it.
so how did you get into your podcasting, just to start with?
Well, actually, getting into this specific topic was, well, that was because I'm, like you mentioned, a domestic violence survivor. But getting into podcasting in general, I actually started a different podcast with my sister, sort of as a joke. I had a friend who bought me a microphone and said, "You should really do podcasting." And I laughed at it for probably a year. I kept this microphone in my closet. And my sister and I started goofing around, pretending I'm in Tennessee in the US, and my sister's in Texas.
Yeah.
And we started just goofing around, pretending we had a podcast. And then we started one that's really still quite silly and very inconsistent, which we're fine with. We're
I
okay
love
with
that.
them. But we did do the first year we started our podcast. We did a few episodes in the month of October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and it hit a chord with some of our listeners, and they asked for more stories. And I didn't want to turn that goofy podcast into such a serious one. So then I ended up starting one in three, probably about 5 months after that.
Yeah,
And I've been doing
that's
it
amazing.
since. Yeah.
I love it, and that's usually how things work out, isn't it? When we start something like that, it's well, we'll just see how it goes, play around a little bit, and we realise now how much it's needed because for the first time ever, I think it's becoming more acceptable to talk about abuse. Like if we
Hmm.
looked at 5, 10 years ago, um, I could never have imagined any podcast being out there talking about abuse. It's a taboo subject. It doesn't happen to everybody. It's a stigmatized topic, blah, blah, blah. And actually, no, it's none of those things. It's actually very common. It happens to a lot of people and can happen to anybody. And it's not a taboo subject. It's something that impacts a lot of people. And even if you're not a victim or survivor yourself, you will know someone. So even if it's a family
Hmm.
member or a friend or a work colleague, there'll be somebody in your life who's experienced abuse. So it touches all of us in some way, doesn't it?
It really does. And you're right. About 5 years ago, it was a lot more taboo. I started my podcast on domestic violence back in 2023. It didn't get a lot of traction for the first year, year and a half, even close to 2 years. The beginning of this year, it really started snowballing a bit. And I started getting a lot more messages and input and comments from people that I didn't know, people that I did know, reaching out from, high school, college, all sorts of different times of my life saying, "Hey, thanks for doing this because I had a similar experience."
Yeah.
And it's really just wanting to give a space, right, to
Yeah.
all of those who have been touched by domestic violence. And like you mentioned, it's almost everybody when you think about it,
Yeah.
either directly or someone they know.
Yeah, definitely. And, that reaching out is so important, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of people, if they're listening, will think, oh, that's lovely, that's a bit, but it takes a lot of courage to reach out and say, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you, because you're giving me that validation. You're giving me that permission to talk about my experience. And it may be for a lot of people that they've never opened up before. So, it's amazing when we get those conversations, those kind of messages, because I think like you, we're probably very similar. If we help one person, that'd be kind of job done. I feel like I've done something. But when it's now starting to impact more and more people in a positive way and give them that feeling of validation and that feeling of then not alone, that's a biggie, isn't it? Not You're
Hmm.
not on your own, because it is so isolating, and it does make people feel very lonely and very alone in the world. And so to have these kind of conversations just massively opens up that kind of world of, so it's a world none of us would choose to be in, isn't it? Not a
Yes,
world-
yes. I've told so many of my guests that, this is a horrible place to be because we went through something very traumatic to get to where we are. But then because we're here, we've made these connections. We get to talk to other people. And I would never have met you otherwise,
no,
right? Like
no.
I can't say that I'm glad I went through it, but I'm glad to be where I am
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you're right. It's so many of us we meet like this and we go, oh my God, I feel like I've known you all my life. And
Yes.
those nodding kind of moments going, yeah, yeah, tick, tick, tick box kind of, yeah, I get it. And it's so powerful, because I think for so long voices are stilted, are muted, and not allowed to have opinions and not allowed to say what you think. And so that control and power over your own life's been taken away. Then to find people who get it, and it is really difficult. But we're still, although we're definitely moving forward, I think we're still, aren't we, in a position where the world will still say, why didn't you just leave?
Hmm.
So that's where we know the people that don't get it, who ask those kind of questions. And I think it's getting better, definitely, but we're still in that kind of dangerous myth of, if it was me, I'd just leave. Really? Really?
Hmm.
It's not that straightforward.
Right. And to be honest, I probably thought that at some point in my life too. If I would have ever been in that situation, I would have just left. But the reality is, you're never just right in that situation. It never is a punch to the face. And that's how it started, because who would stay?
Yeah.
If immediately
Yeah.
somebody comes up and does that, you're going to walk away,
Yeah.
or fight back. But
Yeah.
it's the whole insidious onset and how it creeps into your life. And by the time you realize what's going on, you're so far in, and you yourself as a person has changed so much
Mhm.
that now you don't know what to do.
No, no, that's so true. And you're very kind of lost, aren't you, in that? I think that's a
Hmm.
brilliant way of describing it. So far into it, it's like being into that tunnel, isn't it? I mean, at the other end is the light, but when
Hmm.
you're in it, it feels like it's never ending. And the word that always comes to my mind is like despair for so many victims and survivors,
Yes.
because it's a very kind of despairing time in your life where you can't see that there's ever going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And you can't see how things are going to get better. But I think that's why it's so important when we have these conversations that we're here to say to people, but it will. And that's not
Hmm.
just a throwing it out there. We know it's not an easy conversation, and we know it sounds very flippant to go, oh, but it will. But it will definitely. It just takes time, and it takes, as annoying as a cliche it is, it's one step at a time, isn't it?
It is. And it's so individualized. Some
Yeah,
people might be able to leave the first time. On average, it takes 7. If you're on number 9, that doesn't mean you're failing.
no,
It's so individualized, and you know yourself what the safest route is. Some people understand, if I leave right now, I may be killed, to be
yeah,
quite honest.
yeah,
So it is a very dangerous, delicate way to get out. It is worth it. It does get better. You do feel you're lost. Actually, you're lost in it. You're lost right when you get out of it. But the other side, it's such a beautiful, this like where I am right now is such a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, and you're right. I 100% couldn't agree with more with you because I think, again, even looking at your face, I know a lot of people will be listening to this. It will be on YouTube as well. But even just looking at you, then you can see that light in you and that happiness in you, and that I think peace is the word, isn't it, for a lot of
Yes.
victims and survivors. It's that peace, knowing that we know post-separation abuse. That's a whole other
Ooh, yes.
issue that goes
Yes.
on and on and on. But you can still have peace within that, can't you? Because when you start to process what's happening, when you start to see actually the behaviors from the perpetrator, from the abuser, then there's a peace within it almost, which sounds really strange, but it's because now you didn't know before, but now you know, and you've become the
Mhm.
one to go, actually. And I say this to people very often is you're the expert of that perpetrator. You've lived with them,
Yes.
you know them inside out. So if you get your head around that and think, hang on a minute, so now we're in the post-separation abuse stage, but actually I'm one step ahead of you because I know exactly what you're going to do next. It's almost
Hmm.
like a
Yeah.
superpower, not one you want.
No, right. But they are very predictable. And actually, if you listen to other stories, even if it's not your story, you're going to hear it and say, "Oh, I know exactly what's going to happen,"
Yeah,
because they're like all the same. And
yeah,
it's weird, but it also is validating, I
yeah.
think.
It is. It is absolutely. And when I've spoken to people previously, it is that light bulb moment of going, oh God, I've been thinking that they have all the power and control, but actually now I know exactly what
Hmm.
they're about. I know what they're going to do. And somebody I spoke to a while ago over here, her name's Sam Beckinsale, and she was talking about her experience of abuse, and I was listening to her talking, and she said it's like a blueprint that they have. And it is.
Hmm.
It's like they've all gone to the same school of of abuse.
Yes.
They've all just gone, yeah, okay, I'll take that textbook and I'm going to learn that and digest that. And it's so bizarre because and there's some comfort. I know it sounds awful to say that, but there's some comfort in that because when you do get in a room with other victims and survivors, at least then you can say, yes, oh God, yeah. So I'm not going mad. Because how many of us over the years have gone, I feel like I'm losing my mind,
Hmm.
this, and it's the psychological abuse because again, they've not punched you in the face necessarily, they've not given you a black eye, or they've not thrown you down the stairs, whatever, and none of those things are acceptable, obviously. Um, but when it comes to the psychological, when we're in that room and everybody's talking about it, it's like, oh my God, yeah, yeah. And you can see people's faces going, I'd never realized I wasn't the only one. So there is some comfort in knowing that they are predictable, I think.
Yes. And, I like how you also said that you, as the victim of that specific perpetrator, you're the expert.
Yeah,
You know them. And there's nothing more telling, more prolific, I suppose, is as to what that victim feels. If they feel in their gut they are in danger, they are. There are danger assessment tools that professionals can use to assess the risk that you might be at, but you're the expert on that person. You know what their cycle is. You know what they're thinking.
yeah, absolutely. And it's really bizarre when it kind of hits, I think, for a lot of people as well. It's like, wow, you are taking back that power and control because you
Hmm.
know the games they're going to play, whether it's they won't provide clothes for the children, or they won't do this, or they'll change drop off pickup times at a moment's notice, or make the holidays difficult, whether it's Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever it is. And so when you know that's going to happen, sometimes there's a freedom in going, okay, and it's not that you're giving in to the demands. Sometimes it's okay to just say that isn't going to get to me, and
Hmm.
over here at the moment there's a lot going on and talking around Christmas, and it's a
Yeah.
date in a diary. So for a lot of people who don't necessarily have their children on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, it might not be their year, it might be that they alternate. um, what I try and say to people is it is a date in a diary. Your child is not going to remember whether you celebrated it with them on the 24th, 25th, 26th, 29th. They're not going to
Hmm.
know. All they'll remember is the memories that you created, that love, that compassion, that fun, the magic, all of it. None of that has to disappear or be taken away from you. It's yours to give, and it's yours to be able to say, actually, I have the power to do that. So if we get wrapped up in the, but it's not fair, then
Mhm.
I think you become stuck in that cycle. And there's a lot of that I've noticed happens over in this country. But it's not fair. No, it's not. 100% not one of us is saying it's fair, but you can do something about it, and you can make and because your children are your main priority, it doesn't matter if it's on the 25th. I mean, Jesus wasn't born on the 25th, so he's not
That's
bothered.
right. That's right. That's right. But yes, you're absolutely right. You get stuck in that it's not fair. And it's not. I mean, it is not fair at all. None of it. None of us asked to be abused. None of us asked to have to put in the work to get out, to heal, to move on. But the more you hang on to that, the more power you're still giving that abuser.
Yeah.
And to move on despite and to be happy despite,
Yeah.
oh, it kills them. They hate
That's
that.
huge, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
like the but, isn't it? It's this but you can. It's that important but in the conversation going, well, it's not fair yet, but what you can
Mhm.
do is make that change to give your children. And the irony is, the more people do that, the more chance you're going to have children that see through the BS, to be honest,
Yes.
as they get older. So they may not see it as children, because I often say this as well, children love both parents. That's natural, that's normal. There's nothing, and in
Mhm.
fact, there's nothing wrong with them loving both parents, but accepting certain behaviors from the abuser, that's not acceptable. They can't help who they love, but what they can help is actually the behavior that that person's displaying is not acceptable. And I think once they kind of get a bit older and start to learn for themselves, they do see who put in the effort, who
Mhm.
stuck around, who made sure that the Christmases and the birthdays and everything, regardless of what day it was celebrated on, were fun.
Yes.
Yeah. And it wasn't about point scoring.
That's right, which they'll keep points.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
abuser will
yeah.
keep points and they'll think that they're winning. But, financial abuse is definitely an issue too. And that's another point where people, I feel, get stuck in that it's not fair, where perhaps their ex has all the money and they can provide this glorious holiday, glorious birthdays, and you're stuck just trying to make ends meet. But it's really important. Like the most important thing is the consistency, the love, the emotional validation that your children are surrounded with when they're with you.
Yeah, absolutely. God, yeah. And because so many times, again, you're right. Every time I'm like, she's right. She's right. I feel like a broken record, but you're right. And it is about that, because but I don't know many victims and survivors who are in a position where they can give their children what the perpetrator can. I don't.
Mhm.
And it's an awful situation. But actually, so often, especially as your children start to get a bit older, what they want is the hugs, the cuddles, the love, the actually you listening to them when they say something. And so often with perpetrators, they're not tactile, they're not emotional, they don't invest in that way, because to them it's a title. Being a
Mhm.
parent is a title. It's not something that they want to invest in and spend that. Because let's be honest, we all know being a parent, it ain't like the Hallmark movies, is it?
No.
It's not. It's
No.
not. It's hard. It's tough.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful um, experience, but it's
Mhm.
also very difficult. And especially if you are, and I think for anybody listening, if you are experiencing abuse and if you are experiencing post-separation abuse, we get it, don't we? It's another layer that's added on to trying to be this parent that's trying to be perfect almost, and none of us are.
Mhm.
And trying to deal with all these things on top of the abuse, and trying to be a parent and trying to just function day to day, when you're dealing with all a text message comes at 10 o'clock at night and the stomach lurches, and the palms start getting sweaty, and
Yeah.
you're thinking before you've even read it what's going to be said. And actually, it's it's about trying to take almost not that away, but to say, do you know what, do I need to look at that at 10 o'clock at night? And if you can, and don't get me wrong, I know it's not easy, because many people would say, I have to because I won't sleep otherwise. But I think it's important that we take control of how we react. And I talk a lot over in the UK about something called the circle of control. And it's this beautiful circle where it's used a lot in psychology. So the outer circle is what's not in your control. how they speak to you, whether they choose to change drop-off time, whether they do this. There's so many things that aren't within your control, but actually in the center of the circle, there's a lot that is. How you react to it, how you live your life. You don't have to explain to them how you live your life. You find a lot of victims and survivors are victims of stalking and harassment. Well, I saw that you were out, or I've been online and I've checked where you, okay, fine, but it's my life and I'll do what I want to do. And the children are with you and I'm out doing my own thing. And okay, so, I mean, it's horrible and it's scary and it's frightening, but it shows that you're trying to move on and they're not.
Yes, you're so
Yeah.
right. You're so right. And it is difficult to move from being the victim within that relationship to getting out and not feeling you have to explain yourself because
Yeah.
that's what you had to do, right? When you were in
Yeah.
the relationship all the time, everything you did, everything you said was questioned and you had to explain yourself even if it wasn't, well, and most of the time it wasn't something that
Yeah.
you really had to explain yourself for. But afterward, to get out of that mindset. So, yeah, if it's a text message, try to find a way to ground yourself first before you even look at it. Know that you're going to probably have some sort of an emotional or physical
Yeah.
reaction even to that, and find a way to ground yourself before you even look at it. And
Yeah.
then take a minute before you respond
Yeah. And come
because
and listen
then,
to this.
mhm,
And come
that's
back to
right.
this and go, okay, right, good. So I'm not going. And it's things like that, isn't it? Because I think again, so many family and friends just don't understand, and it's so hard. And it's another thing that we talk a lot about over here, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, I would imagine, is when friends and family say things that aren't helpful, and that kind of secondary victimization and oh, I've heard this story 10 times now, and oh, we've heard that they don't do X, Y, Z, or they change the plans. Or they do. Yes, but this is this person's life. This is what's happening to them. And I was at a talk the other day, and somebody asked me this question about what do you do, when you're a friend or a family member that's worried about someone. And I was saying, you can seek support as well. There are services out
Hmm.
there. There's things like this pod. It's here as a resource to be able to say you're not on your own, because we get it for family and friends. It's like you're on the outside looking in. And
Hmm.
so it may be, I did an episode with a lady called Sari Taylor, who's a psychotherapist, and she said, friends and family, she'd been in this position, and she said, I put my ego first and told them what they needed to do. She's like, worst thing I could have done. Because all you do is then push them further towards the perpetrator, because they'll go, but you don't understand. And actually, she was right. What she was saying was, we need to take ego out of it. Just because our family and friends think they know what's best for us doesn't necessarily mean that it gives them the right to go, okay, so this is what you've got to do. They're not in your shoes, are they?
Hmm.
It's a difficult one with family and friends.
Oh, it is very difficult. And you're right. You have to take that ego out and remember you're the expert on
Yeah.
what's happening to you. And uh, that, how long are you going to hold on to this? Like, once you get out of the relationship, those kind of comments from family and friends of, really, that happened so long ago.
Oh God,
Why
yeah.
are you still thinking about it? Why are you still letting this bother you? Why are you still talking about it? And especially when you have post-separation abuse going on, it's impossible to let it
Yeah.
go like by because it's still happening.
Yeah.
But it's deep scars, is really deep rooted. And I interviewed a father on my podcast who he talked about his perspective of watching his daughter in a violent relationship. And what he did was beautiful without even knowing anything about domestic violence. He ended up researching once he figured out that's what was going
Yeah.
on. But he still had a natural response to do the appropriate thing, which was support her,
Yeah.
not judge her, listen to her, because meanwhile, her abuser is telling her, your father's controlling, he's trying to do all of
Yeah.
these things. And if he would have reacted, he would have been playing right into what that abuser was telling her, that
100%.
narrative.
Yeah.
But to just create and keep a safe place where that victim knows they can come back to the family. They know they can come back without being judged. They're going to come back with arms wide open
Yeah.
and be supported and validated. That's what's important for
Yeah.
victims because they're not getting that.
No,
They're not getting that in
exactly.
that
That's it.
relationship.
No, definitely not. And you're right. And I love the way that dad handled things. And
Hmm.
it's time is everything. Listening is everything. As much as we all in our own lives, whether we've been impacted or not, we want to help people. You know, if you're a decent human being, you would want to help somebody, you would want them to be happy. But at the same time, when they're experiencing abuse, it's not that straightforward. There's a lot of cogs in those wheels that are turning. And like you say, if he'd have gone the other way, he could have pushed her even further to the perpetrator and done exactly what he wanted and gone, see, I was right, your dad's X, Y, and Z. So not falling into that trap and going, okay, I'm going to breathe, ground yourself, like you say, think for a minute and listen, you know. And I think there's so much more that family and friends can do, because I know I've spoken to people before, gone, I just feel so helpless, I don't know what to do. And I think that's the hardest thing for them, isn't it, not knowing. Whereas if we can give them those tools to say, I know it sounds easy to say listen, but actually it can be quite difficult because you want to solve those problems. So listening is really, really powerful. And it's not, I often say this as well, it's not going to be solved in a couple of hours. You know, you watch a film like, I don't know, say Sleeping with the Enemy with Julia
Oh,
Roberts,
yeah,
you know, kind of very domestic abuse film. But by the end of that film, 2 hours, an hour and 45, whatever it is, everything's kind of done, dusted, sorted. Real life isn't like that. You know, so for family events, it is going to take time and you'll have to be patient. And there may be things that they say that really gets under your skin and you're thinking, I really, really need to say something. But if you stay strong and stay in that place of compassion, listening, not judging, that's a huge one that you said. You know, we over here, we talk a lot about kind of the victim blaming. And we've seen so many cases this year where the headline is woman did such and such thing, whereas actually it's what? So that woman was abused. So we're making her the problem. Whereas actually the person who's the abuser, they should be the front page. They should be the one that the spotlight's on, not the person that's been abused. Let's get it the right way round. Is the victim is exactly that, a victim. They are not to be put in the hot seat and gone, well, why aren't we asking the perpetrator these questions? Why do you choose to behave like this? Why do you think it's acceptable to put your children through this? We're asking the wrong questions to the wrong people.
You're right. You're right. And this is a tangent that I can go off on
Yeah.
every single time, is you look at the parents, there's the victim parent, the abusive parent, and the abusive parent can be asked, oh, you did, whether they're actually abusing the children or the children are witnessing the abuse of their other parent. Why did you do that? Oh, I know, I did it. I'm sorry. And then they're forgiven. But then you look at that victim parent and they're just constantly asked, why didn't you leave? Why did you expose your kids to that? That's not okay. And they're not forgiven.
No, and that's exactly it. And I think, you know, with say the family courts, and I've done a few episodes on this now, and again I get the feeling. I spoke to a lady called Lynn Stroud. We did an episode, and she herself has obviously we talked about abuse, talked about the family courts in America as well as over here. And again, you're in this catch-22 because you have a court order, you are concerned about your children, so you don't send them. But then the relevant services get involved and say, well, why don't you send them? Well, because I'm concerned about them. But you're breaching the order, so you need to send them. But I'm concerned about them. So you can't win. And then you do send them, then they'll say, but you sent them, so you can't be that worried.
That's
It's
right.
like,
Yes.
it's like you can't
Yes.
win whatever you do.
Oh, you're just spinning your circles, trying to
Yeah,
do, and all you're worried about is what's best for your kids.
yeah,
And you're
yeah,
either too aggressive and you're alienating the other parent from your
yeah,
children, or you're not advocating enough for your kids. It's really a
yeah.
tough situation. There are so many experts out there that can help assist
Yeah, there are.
going
And
through that, what to say, what to do.
definitely. And I do think anyone that is experiencing that, especially in the run up to Christmas, I mean, it's the hardest time. And if
Mm-hmm.
you've got a court order that's telling you something, and the perpetrator is using that, then, you know, it is important to, if there are services around you, if there are places you can contact, and if not, you know, things online that you can find, organizations that you can speak to, wherever you are in the world, you know, and get that support. Because even if I often think this, like, we'd all love to click our fingers and solve the problem, but it's not that simple. You know, preventing abuse for me, I think would mean we have to go back to the beginning and be
Hmm.
educating in schools so that the
Hmm.
next generation understand what abuse is in an age appropriate way, etc. But there was a brilliant quote from, I love it, from Desmond Tutu, and he talks about we need to stop jumping in the stream at the point we're at, and we need to go further back and see where
Yes.
people are falling in. We need to stop fishing people out where they are. And I'm not saying stop fishing people out where they are, because that's important, but go back even further and say, actually, we need to look at that. Why is it? Because children are going into schools who've lived in abusive households, who've witnessed it themselves, who for them it's probably perfectly normal. And for the victim children who are going in, and for the children who potentially are going to become abusers,
Hmm.
because statistically that's the case at the moment. That's the only way I feel that things could ever change, is if we really change that mindset on what a relationship looks like and what a healthy relationship looks like. You know, people can say, we know with the love bombing, they can say whatever they want, they can tell you you're the most perfect, beautiful person, etc. Shower affection, but actually it's someone's deeds, isn't it? It's deeds, not words, that matter. It's what somebody does. And if their words and actions aren't marrying up, you know, this is what we need to be educating children on, is actually watch what someone does, not what they say.
Hmm. I couldn't agree more. We need to definitely be way more proactive in this to prevent. And I mean, like I said, I can't agree more. Getting into the schools and educating the children on what is normal in a relationship, especially when we have teenagers who are just getting into relationships. And you may have somebody who doesn't even have the intention of being abusive, but they are
Yeah,
controlling, and they are monitoring who are you talking to, where are
yeah,
you going. That's not okay behavior. And little
no,
subtle things like that, it can build up into tolerance of bigger things as
yeah,
people get older.
yeah, absolutely. And for those children who possibly have sort of an attachment disorder or
Yeah.
abandonment issues, because they feel that way, by even though they see the perpetrator parent, they know that really deep down they don't care, because again their words and actions don't marry up. So that those children can grow up thinking, going into relationships thinking, I need to do all this because I need to be loved, I need to be liked, I need to be needed. And actually that can be too much for people, but that's only their own trauma response kicking in,
Hmm.
going, but I need you to like me, you know, I need to do all this because
Yes.
I didn't get that myself. And it's so hard, isn't it? I think there's so much work still to do, but I think these sort of, I mean, you and I could talk for hours.
We could,
We know
there's
that.
so many points to talk about.
So much. We need just a whole show of our own, me
We
and
really
you.
should. Oh my goodness. Could you
Do.
imagine?
Oh my God, it'd be amazing.
Yes.
And I'd rather listen to your voice than mine, though. I'm not going to lie.
No, no. I love your accent. I could listen
Oh,
all day.
oh God, I don't know. I sound like something, I don't know, out of Coronation Street or something. It's a show over here. But anyway, yes, very northern. But no, I'd rather have your accent in a million years. I would, definitely. But yes, so I will probably wrap up here, because I feel like I've obviously taken a lot of your time, but also we probably will do another one in the future. I can feel it. I can feel that
Oh,
we need to
yes.
do
I think we
another.
should we should do this as often as we can.
Yeah.
Just sort of a bridging the pond check-in
Yeah,
with each other.
definitely. And having this, I love it, because everything we're sort of talking about, we're going, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, couldn't agree
Yes.
more. And it's not that we're trying to agree with each other. It's just we both get it, and it's
Yeah.
like wow. And there'll be so many other people sitting there listening to this, nodding, going, oh my God, yes, yes,
Hmm.
100%.
Yeah.
But
They
yeah,
know.
oh, they do, they do. Thank you, oh Ingrid, thank you so so much, and I will see you very soon.
Yes, Lucy, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.